Hey, what's going on? It is 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor, where this week we're talking about buyers. How to close a buyer. What are the steps? What is it that you have to do when somebody wants to buy a house, and we're going to assist them through this process and somehow get paid for doing that? What is it that we're getting paid to do? What are the steps in this process to go from somebody saying, hey, I want to buy a house, to even positioning yourself in a position where I could help you buy a house, and walking him through this process of steps. Look, buying the house, it's a process. Buying real estate is a process. It's a system, something you could systematize. And when you could systematize a process, you could repeat it very easily. And that's what you're doing in real estate. That's what your business is, or at least the side where you're working with buyers, is you're moving them through this process. You're moving them through these steps to go from, hey, I want to buy a house, to, hey, I now own a house. And if we could successfully do that, we end up getting paid a commission for doing that. So what we're going to be breaking down today is just a brief overview of start to finish, from somebody wanting to buy a house to getting all the way to the closing, what steps are involved, what that process kind of looks like. So stick with us. I'm John Chrisimo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor, where we're talking about closing buyers. So when you're starting out in real estate, really anytime you're working in real estate, if you're trying to make money, if you're trying to do real estate, if you're trying to be a realtor, if you're trying to broker a transaction, a sale, you're either going to be working with the seller or the buyer. Now, usually what typically happens, at least when you're new to real estate, is you're usually finding more people that are wanting to buy real estate, because especially when you're new, you might find people that are looking to sell their biggest asset, where they might do some more due diligence. They might want somebody that's more experienced. It's more of a process of them thinking through it. So that doesn't necessarily mean you can't be successful with sellers, but you have to be very intentional, just like you have to be intentional working with buyers as well. But that being said, usually the buyer leads come a little bit easier when you're starting out as opposed to seller leads. You might get either or, but typically buyer leads, there's a lot more of them as well. All these websites like Zillow.com and Realtor.com, maybe your broker has some sort of lead generation system or website or agreement with one of these companies to get leads, and usually these are buyer leads. So we've got to be intentional about the steps we're taking these buyers through, because with buyers, if you're not intentional, it ends up taking a lot longer and being a lot more difficult than it normally would. So we've got to clearly define and lay out the process, not just for ourselves, but for our clients as well, so they understand, okay, this is what buying a house looks like. This is what this process is going to be. So we want to break down this system, these steps. And one of the first things that you want to do when you're working with a buyer is a consultation. You want to work in a consultation as soon as possible. Now, this can be a little bit more difficult when you have somebody calling you up and saying, hey, I want to go see this house. And sometimes you might have to go show them a house before you do a consultation, but ideally you want to do a consultation first before we even look at any real estate, so we could clearly define and lay out the expectations of this relationship. Not just our expectations, but our clients' expectations. What is it that they're trying to accomplish? What is that goal that we can help them achieve? What do they want to set out to do? And now how do we help them do that? And that's what you're finding out in the consultation. And this is the one thing that if you're not doing this already with buyers, or if you haven't worked with any buyers yet, to make sure you do this one step of the consultation to try to work that in. ideally, again, before you go out and show any houses, because this consultation, this is going to set the stage. This is going to, again, help everybody know, hey, this is my role, this is what I'm going to do, this is your role, this is what you're going to do, and this is the steps we're going to take you through. And look, I'm the type of person who doesn't like having that structure as much. Or I shouldn't say that, because I do appreciate the structure, but I'm the type of person who's willing to jump in without having that structure set in place. And I know a lot of you guys out there, especially that are more self-motivated, self-starter, entrepreneurial types, you might be more inclined to just jump headfirst into something. And if you just jump into this transaction without setting the stage, without setting the tone, kind of just trying to wing it and take it from where you're going, you're really setting yourself up for failure, because the consultation, again, is where you really get to understand your client, what their motivators are, the reason why they're even buying a house in the first place, and of course what that property looks like that they're going to be wanting to purchase. We're also going to try to find out how far along they are through this home buying process. We're doing all kinds of fact-finding and due diligence. Maybe they just started looking at homes, or maybe they've been looking for 2 years now. Maybe they would like to move, or maybe they need to move because their spouse got relocated and they need to sell this property as soon as possible and get moved into their new house as soon as possible. We don't know the answers to these questions unless we ask. And so what helps really well here is having some sort of questionnaire where you've got a bunch of questions that you're going to use to probe your client to, again, really understand what they're doing, what they want, because now you don't have to be psychic. So many new agents, they feel like they need to be psychic, like that they need to read their clients' minds. And look, there's intuition and being able to read body language and things like that, but you're not going to be able to read your clients' minds. And if you think you can, you're gonna really, even if you can read their minds, they're gonna feel like you're not listening to them because you're not allowing them to explain everything it is in detail of what they want, and basically receiving that communication. So whether or not you're psychic doesn't matter. You still need to do the fact finding. You still need to ask the questions. You might be saying, well, John, of course I'm not psychic. Well, why don't you ask the questions then? Ask the questions, find out what you need to know, and don't make assumptions about your clients. Because they need this as well. They need this process of verbalizing what it is that they're doing with you. Why do they need a relationship with you? Oh, well, that's because I want to buy this home and I want to do this. When we're able to tap into what their wants, needs, and desires are, we could figure out how we could help them accomplish their wants, needs, and desires. And we could help them accomplish their wants, needs, and desires. We're going to end up getting paid. They want to buy this house and this and that, or maybe they've been renting and they want to take their first home. Again, finding out this information about them is ultimately going to dictate what path they go down, because if they're a first-time home buyer, that's going to look a lot different than if they bought and sold many homes before. If maybe they're a current homeowner and they're trading up or downsizing or doing something along those lines, they're going to need completely different information compared to somebody who is, hey, I want to be able to buy, but I don't know how yet. And the consultation ultimately leads to education and information. And this education and information is related to the consultation and the questionnaire, the questions, the answers that you got, so that way you can relate the things that they're concerned about, their goals, their wants, their needs, desires. You could relate that into the process. You're educating them about the process, the steps. Tips and tricks. Again, breaking down how it is you could benefit them. And you don't want to tell them every last detail of, oh, well, I've done this and I've done that. You really want to just boil this down to what's relevant to their desires. Make it about them. It's not about you. You do the same thing in a slightly different way for every person. That's not exciting. What's unique about it is them and what specifically they want. So we need to find that information to figure out how our process, our steps that we take them through, how that's going to relate to them so they better understand this process. So again, this consultation is the biggest part of setting yourself up for success working with buyers, because again, it sets the stage, it sets the tone, and it's going to help expedite this process, because it's really easy for a buyer to end up lost and confused. That's a very common type of state, I should say, state, emotion, whatever you want to call it, for somebody who's buying a house, especially if it's the first time they're doing it. But even if they've done that before, it's still going to be a confusing process. And when they are not exactly sure what house it is that they want, it's that they're lost. They're lost and confused. They're not sure where they want to move or what exactly it is that they want. And you counseling them. Imagine you go to a psychiatrist or a counselor. They're talking to you. They're having you talk through it, because that talking through it helps you realize what's going on. So you want to do the same thing with your client. You want to help them talk through this to help them really get a better handle on what it is that they're doing, because that's going to make them more confident. They're going to be more confident in themselves, in their capability to do this, as well as when you present this information about how you're going to help them, your steps, your process, the tips and tricks, your role, their role, all that information, you're going to make them confident that they can do this. That's really important, especially for a first-time home buyer. Confident that they can do it, and also confident in the process, in our system, in our business, in our brokerage, in your services. We need to get them confident on that. Now, moving on from again, setting the stage. Now, what are we doing on the stage that we just set? What are we doing with this foundation that we just built with that consultation? Well, one of the steps in that consultation, again, is the questionnaire, figuring out where they're at in this process and finding out how long it is they've been looking at houses before. Because at some degree or another, there probably is still going to be the home search step involved. Now, the home search step can be extremely frustrating. And this is where buyers end up getting lost a lot of times, is in this home search step of looking for that perfect house. And the reality of it is, and what a lot of buyers eventually realize, is there's no such thing as a perfect house. Now, you might be able to make it perfect with modifications after the fact, but there usually isn't a perfect house out there, because that definition of perfect is unique to you as an individual. And unless you went and built a house out there for yourself, that perfect house probably doesn't exist. And this is an important step in the consultation process, in the questionnaire, where we're figuring out, okay, what's most important to you about the house? What are the must-haves? And what are the things that you'd like to have, but at the end of the day, if you couldn't have them, maybe that's something you could add later, maybe just scratch that off the list altogether. What are those items? And now you're figuring this out to help them understand what's important to them. Because again, when they get lost in this home search step, it's either, number one, they're looking for the perfect house, which they're never going to find. If you're trying to help them find the perfect house, you're really setting yourself up to look at a lot of properties and eventually be disappointed, because again, that perfect house doesn't usually exist unless they've gone out and built a house for themselves and they've ended up sold it and they want to buy it back. That house probably doesn't exist. So usually there's little things that can be modified and adjusted, whether paint colors are a great example. Maybe they just absolutely despise the paint color. That's sometimes hard to see past. But when they realized, okay, well, I'm willing to budge on paint because that'll only be maybe a few $1,000s, maybe even less if we do it ourselves to get the property repainted after we own it. Okay, so maybe I don't care as much about the paint colors. And again, having that might seem like, oh yeah, well, of course we don't care about the paint. The professional. We work in this industry, in this business every single day. So that things that seem routine for us might not always seem routine for somebody who has never bought a house before, or for somebody who hasn't bought their house in 10 years. And it's been a long time since they've been out there on the prowl looking for another house, whereas that's what we do every single day. So again, we're the professionals, so we have to educate them on this process, on what's out there. And at the end of the day, if we could find them that perfect house, fantastic, but chances are there's going to have to be some compromises. And notice how I just said that right there. Hey, look, I'm going to try to get you the perfect house, and let's see if we can figure that out, what that looks like. But if we do have to make some compromises, what are we going to compromise on? What are the things it is that you're willing to go on the back burner, to take a back seat, to maybe scratch out, or maybe do a modification after you've bought the house? What are those items? Because again, that'll help accelerate the home search, because you're able to be more specific. What takes time in the home search? Well, the thing that takes time is the appointments of actually touring the house. So, maybe part of your process, and maybe prior to 2020, this wouldn't be as probable, but I would suspect no matter where you are in the United States that your market has greatly adopted virtual tours, videos, high quality photos, so that way properties can be showcased online, which that's been going on for years. It's just more important really ever since 2020. So maybe part of this step is utilizing those virtual tours, those photos, those videos to really get a better understanding of which properties are the top contenders before we go out there and look at all the properties. Because we don't want to waste our time, and get this, your clients don't want to waste their time either. They don't want to waste their time looking at the wrong properties. They might be excited just to go out and look at properties, but ultimately if they end up looking at wrong property after wrong property after wrong property, they're going to get burnt out. They're going to get tired. They're going to lose motivation. They're going to think that perfect house doesn't exist or anything even close to it doesn't exist, and they'll just throw in the towel because they'll get frustrated with this process. So when we're showing properties, when we actually go there to actually physically tour the property, we want to be sure that, hey, this is a top contender. If there's any reason we might write that property off before we even look at it, hey, let's not even look at it. Let's find some other properties that are going to be a better fit. And at the end of the day, maybe there isn't anything, so that's where we got to be maybe a little less specific and loosen it up. And again, this is a good exercise in, okay, what is it that we could compromise on? A good exercise to do with this, because remember, we're counseling them through this process the whole time. Yes, we do the consultation right away, but we never stop counseling them throughout this home buying process. And as we go through this here, maybe the parameters that they've laid out are so specific. Maybe they don't exist in the price range that they could afford. We're going to talk about the pre-approval as well. That's going to be really important to this as well. But the home search, they've probably already been doing some home searching. They've already looked at some properties, maybe not in person yet. Maybe they have. Maybe they've gone to open houses, but at the very least, they've looked at properties online. So we want to try to narrow this down, and again, that's what we're really doing here. We're figuring out, okay, which one of these are most likely, and we're helping counseling them through this decision-making process. And that can be done right from a computer, a tablet, some sort of internet-connected device, right from your office, right from wherever it is that you're meeting them at, before you even go out there to tour the properties. And this is usually what you're doing right there as part of the consultation. Now, as you start to get into the home search process, that brings up the question of, well, how much? And this is absolutely another thing that you want to address in that initial consultation meeting is, hey, well, how much can we afford? Not how much they think they could afford, how much they can afford. How much regulations say they can afford, how much a lender would say they could afford. That's what we're concerned with. It doesn't matter if they think they could afford $1 million house. Let's see what the lender says. Let's see what, based on their credit score and their income levels and all these other factors that determine your credit worthiness, let's see what they say. Now, no one gets excited to go get their credit checked. Even when people have great credit, they're always worried that, oh, their credit might not be good enough, or it might not be good enough to get the best rate, or they might not even be good enough to qualify whatsoever. So no one gets excited about getting their credit checked. But this is something we want to do early on, because imagine how hard it's going to be to sell a $300,000 house to somebody when they've had their sights set on a $500,000 house. If they've had their sights set on a $500,000 house, and then they find out they could only afford a $300,000 house, and now they're only looking at $300,000 houses, are they going to find any that compare to that $500,000 house? Probably not. And now they're going to be frustrated. And don't take this the wrong way, but it's kind of your fault as the realtor, as the sales associate, as the professional. Now, we can point blame at whoever it is that we want, but remember, at the end of the day, we can only affect our actions. So unless we want to run into the same problem in the next client, in the next transaction, we better figure out a way that we could be proactive so we could get them qualified as soon as possible, so we don't spend time giving them false hope. Because you delaying the pre-qualification, you're potentially giving your clients false hope. You're giving them false hope that they could afford something that they might not be able to afford. And even if they can afford it, they don't know whether or not they can afford it yet because they don't have the pre-approval of a lender. So again, as we lay out this process, that we have to really, again, try to be intentional about getting this done as soon as possible. Again, ideally, right when we're first doing that initial consultation, we bring in a mortgage loan originator, mortgage broker. Maybe they work in the office. Maybe we get them on a Zoom call or even just a phone call, or somehow we get them on the phone with them so that way they could guide them through that process and figure out, hey, how much do I qualify? How much home can I buy? How much can I afford? So now we could be specific in our search. We're not going to waste time looking at properties that are outside of that affordability. Why look at properties you can't afford when you can't afford them? Now, it might get you excited, it might help you dream, but that's not going to help you make a decision right now. So as we try to, again, make sure this process goes as smoothly as possible, we want to, again, smooth is the key word. We want to make this seem easy. When at the end of the day this feels easy, going through this process, going through these steps, that's when you know that you're doing it right. When it seems easy, it should seem easy. Yes, there's a lot of steps involved in buying a house, but when it seems easy, it's because you have a predictable process, and not just a predictable process for yourself, but a predictable process for your client, where your clients see that it's predictable. That's how things go smoothly, because they know what to expect. What causes things not to go smoothly are surprises, are little things that pop up, and those will happen. So any way we can be proactive of those surprises to warn our clients almost of, hey, this might happen here. And if it does, don't worry about it, then we just do this. This is how we progress. If, maybe when you're submitting an offer, it's really good, again, to not give your clients false hope. When let's fast forward here. Let's say we got the pre-approval. The lender says they're pre-approved for this much, and we find a house in the home search that they like. So we've narrowed it down to a property that they like, and now we're going to help them submit an offer on the property. Now, the offer that they're making, and depending on what the market is like, is going to dictate how we present this offer, or how good we have to make that offer. Right now, it's a crazy seller's market. There's not a lot of inventory and there's lots of buyers. So with your offer as a buyer, you'd have to be extremely competitive. And it's important that we have this conversation with a buyer in a market like this, because if they go in and make a low offer, they might think that their offer is good, but if they don't know it's a really hot market, and making a low offer is probably not even going to get any sort of response, let alone a counter offer or even acceptance. Or maybe if the market isn't as hot and they still want to make a lower offer at first, we maybe tell them, hey, maybe they take this. And if they do, great, fantastic. But if, let's say, they counter offer, that's what's probably most likely going to happen, that they make a counter offer for a higher amount. Now, if they make that counter offer, that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll only do it at that price here. So maybe we'll have to counter offer back. We'll have to see what they say here. But notice how we've set the tone, that it's not that, hey, this either gets accepted or it doesn't. Because in their head, that's what they're thinking. Oh, if it gets accepted, we get the house. If it doesn't, then we don't get the house. So again, being preemptive, that I don't want to use the word warn them, but we foreshadow what's about to happen. We explain to them, hey, this might get accepted, but being that it's a lower offer, it probably won't. They're probably instead going to give a counter offer, especially since this is the first offer. There might be other offers on the property. And if there are, that's definitely going to warrant us having to probably go up higher in price. The property could even sell higher than what it's listed for if there's multiple offers on the property. Notice how we just give them these little tidbits here to help them better understand. Again, our job is to educate and inform them on this process so they feel confident about going through this process here. And we really just have to be one step ahead of them. As long as we're one step ahead of them, we could kind of show them, hey, oh yeah, up here, this next little bend on this road, it's going to get a little crazy. But don't worry, just follow my lead and we'll get you through that, no problem. That's basically what we're doing here. And ultimately, we want to know the whole process start to finish, because when we know from point A all the way to the final point B of the closing, and we've got that all laid out, we'll be able to take them the quickest steps through that process, the quickest path through those steps. But yeah, ultimately, the offer and the negotiation. So they make an offer. Again, what's really important, we set the tone. Submitting the offer, look, if you're new to this and you haven't reviewed the contracts, definitely review the contract. This is one of the things that I was most intimidated about when I first started in real estate. When I first started in real estate, I was afraid to show a house, and I was afraid to show a house because I was afraid they would like it and want to make an offer on it. Why should I be afraid of that? That should be what I'm out there actively seeking, for them to make an offer on the property, because if they don't make an offer, well, there's going to be no contract, and if there's no contract, there's no closing. If there's no closing, there's no pay for me. So why wouldn't I want to make an offer on the property? Well, because I didn't know what I was doing with that offer. I was like, oh, all right, yeah, if they want to make an offer, okay, well, I probably got to read that contract. I probably got to figure out what to do, and all these what-if things. So, again, to make yourself more familiar with this, these contracts that we use, they're from the Association of Realtors. That's one of the benefits you get from joining the Association of Realtors, is all these fill-in-the-blank contracts. And with these fill-in-the-blanks, that's literally what we do. We fill in the blanks. And when you're just doing regular sales for homeowners, and you're not doing anything too crazy for an investor or some special purpose type of property, well, then those blanks are usually fairly easy to fill out. So what do we do to make sure we're prepared, where we're not going to be afraid of making that offer? Well, maybe your broker has some class where you fill out a sample offer, where you're going through and you're doing it together, and they're explaining what these different parts of the contract mean and how you're supposed to fill them out. Maybe your brokerage doesn't have any sort of training like that. And this is also part of the reason why we recommend you take post-licensing as soon as possible before you choose a broker, so that way you know what you're looking for in a good broker, and you'll have better knowledge of how to actually sell real estate. But hey, look, take your post-licensing course as soon as possible, and that'll help walk you through that. But ultimately, most brokerages, or even the Association of Realtors, typically, they'll usually a more vague training. Or in Florida, we've got the Florida Realtors Attorney Legal Hotline, where we could call into a Florida Association of Realtors attorney and ask them questions about the contracts, and even based on certain specific scenarios, they might be able to give us a little bit further detail on the implications of the law on that, so we better understand what these contracts can do. And look, it can seem intimidating, especially all that stuff I've just said. If you don't even have your real estate license yet, you're probably thinking, oh wow, can I do that? These, oh God, contracts are so no, the contracts are not complicated. The real estate contracts that are used for the Association of Realtors are much easier to read than your typical types of contracts that are out there. And look, the contracts are, yes, a tool that we use to bind a buyer or the seller, or initially just for relaying these offers back and forth, but that's all they are. They're just a tool. They don't necessarily define the transaction. We're not writing a contract from scratch. We're just filling in the blanks. How many days do they want to do an inspection? How are they paying for the property? Cash? We check the cash box. Financing? We check the financing box. And when we check the financing box, we fill in the blanks that they need to get at least this interest and this down payment, otherwise no deal. So again, it's just fill in the blanks. This price, this many days for this many days for that. That's all you're doing with these contracts. So it's really easy to fill in these blanks when you understand the gist of this. Now, again, for us, that's going to become easy quickly, because again, we're the professional working with these contracts on a daily basis. But for the consumer, for the home buyer, for the home seller, they'll be really intimidated by that. They won't understand that, so that's where they'll need us to help them understand what that offer means. Understand what the implications are, what the pros and cons are of that offer. So again, kind of counseling them through that. If I were to really sum up what you're doing the most with buyers, it's counseling them through this process. Help offer, we eventually get to a contract. Once we get to an agreement, if we get to an agreement, and once we get to a contract, our job's not quite done yet. This is where we're now overseeing the contract to closing. And this contract to closing, this is going to really benefit from having a structured system that you're walking your clients through. Because there's a lot of routine things that are going to be happening that should be happening in pretty much every sale. You have, with most sales, they're probably going to be financed, so you have your formal application for your loan. for that particular property. You have your inspections, your appraisal of what the value is, getting the insurance, all these little steps here, and you're going to have a team helping you through this process. You'll have a mortgage department on your team. You'll have an inspector on your team. You'll have an appraiser on your team. You'll have a title company on your team. Now, at times, it might seem like these people aren't on your team here because you might think that they bring up something that's going to blow up the deal or cause the transaction to fall apart, when really they're just doing their job. They're doing their job to make sure that they can get them the money. They're doing their job to make sure that they're informed about potential problems with the property. They're doing their job to make sure the property is what they say it's worth. And at the end of the day, we could get frustrated with these different people that are on our team. And that's what you want to remember, is that they're on our team here. We don't always pick every single one of these people here. There might be somebody that just ends up on our team that we don't want to work with, but we have to because they're part of this transaction, whether that's anybody in this process. Again, also title company we could throw up here as well. So you have all these different entities involved there to help you out through the steps. But at the end of the day, you're the one overseeing this. You're the CEO of this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stick with us. I'm John Christopher. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. We're talking about closing buyers, and we're specifically talking about the contract to close process. So once you get under contract, there's all these different steps we started mentioning. Doing the formal loan application with the mortgage broker, mortgage loan originator, whoever it might be, the inspection of the property, the appraisal, the title company, getting everything prepared on the title side for the closing of it, and then getting to the actual closing. And this isn't all of the exact specific steps here that you're going through with this, but in a nutshell, these are some of the major steps here. Some of the major things that we need to make sure get done by certain time periods. So they'll usually in the contract, again, those blanks that we're filling in, that you have this many days to do the application and to get your loan approved. That you have this many days to conduct the inspection, this many days to get the appraisal done, this many days to ultimately close on the property. So we don't really have full control over each of these steps here because there's these people on our team that have various licenses that we don't have where, again, they specialize in these items. But we want to oversee this to make sure that these things are getting done. Because if the inspection doesn't get done, and we went past the inspection deadline in the contract, we blew it. Now we could say it wasn't us, we could play the blame game here, but this is going to potentially result in a big upset for our client. Because they could still do an inspection if they want, but if we're past the deadline in the contract, it doesn't matter if they don't like what's in that inspection. Once we pass that deadline of the inspection, we lose our ability to negotiate based on that inspection. If they want to be able to completely cancel the deal due to what they find in the inspection, they need to make sure they get the inspection done during the inspection window. Now, we don't want the deal ultimately to just be canceled because they don't like the inspection. And it probably shouldn't just be outright canceled right away because of the inspection, unless it's just a really, really, really bad inspection with tons of stuff you didn't know that was there. But usually with an inspection, there's going to be surprises. Now, again, remember, we want to try to avoid surprises because surprises scare people. Think of the scary movies. It's October right now. If you've been watching any scary movies, it's those surprises that are like, ooh, wow, ooh, that's scary. Those are also, this is like a real life horror movie. If there's surprises in your real estate transaction, you don't want that. We want to try to avoid surprises. So again, we want to be preemptive about all these different steps here. That, well, what if it's got all kinds of problems that I don't like? Well, hey, look, if there's things you don't like, ultimately, as long as we're in the inspection window, we could completely cancel the contract if you want. Now, I would imagine that a few small problems wouldn't make you want to not have this house altogether, but at the same time, you want to get those small problems taken care of, correct? Well, yeah, that is correct. Great, glad we're on the same page here. Because what we could do if there's some small problems in the inspection that you're ultimately okay with as long as they get fixed, or what we could even do, maybe the seller, maybe they're not willing to fix them, but maybe they'll be willing to drop the price of the property. Which one of those sounds better to you? Would you rather have the items fixed, or would you rather have the seller drop the price of the property? Notice how we've changed the dynamic from, it's not, well, do I still buy the property or I don't? Because remember, there's not going to be perfect properties. The more we set an expectation that there's going to be a perfect property, the more they're going to look for the perfect property, and the more reasons they'll have that this property isn't perfect and that they shouldn't do it here. There's going to be things they'll have to compromise on. And again, even if it's a brand new house, new construction homes should still be inspected because new construction homes still have problems too, even though they're brand new, even though they were just built. Like any manufacturing process, there's going to be defects, and that's why we would have an inspection done to make sure that the buyer's aware of all those defects. And them being aware gives us that ability to renegotiate the price, to negotiate these items being repaired before the closing, or whatever it is that's going to make our client happy. Or maybe at the end of the day, they say, no, well, based on this stuff, I wasn't expecting that and I don't want to do this here. Again, we keep it moving forward. We don't want to get our client to get hung up in limbo of what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Let's make the decision. Let's get all the facts as quickly as possible. That's what our job is. Hey, here's all the facts. Here's all the different ways this could go down here. Let's make a decision. Do you still want to do this house? Okay, you do. Should we renegotiate the price, or should we try to get the seller to do these repairs? Okay, then let's do that. Or maybe they say, you know what, no, I don't want this house anymore. Are you sure? We could renegotiate, we could get these items fixed, and if these items were fixed, would you still want this house? No, you wouldn't? Okay, good, this house probably wasn't right to begin with then. What else was wrong about the house? And then maybe we could find, and we're kind of restarting the process here, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully it doesn't come to this. But at the same time, if earlier on in these steps they're having really intense buyer's remorse like this here, that's going to result in that happening more and more down the road. So it might be that we've got them on the wrong property. And I know it sucks to have to start that home search process again, but sometimes that's the way it pans out. And they might just not be ready yet. Now, you're going to avoid this the more intentional and more, again, you foreshadow those next steps, the better it is they'll understand what this process looks like here. And one of the things about them going into this contract is there's probably an earnest money deposit. There's probably some sort of escrow money, especially in a more seller's market like we have now. And when you have an escrow deposit, when they're writing a check for however many thousands of dollars, they're serious about buying this house. And usually the details in the inspection aren't going to cause the sale to fall apart. Usually when it does, it's when we're not properly foreshadowing that, hey, there might be some things in this inspection that you don't like. And letting them know that that could be a possibility, so that way they could still love the house even with its imperfections. That they could love the house despite its imperfections. Now, they might want those imperfections fixed still, but they still love the house and they could see past those imperfections. They see those imperfections, maybe just some sort of dollar sign that, again, we maybe renegotiate the price, or maybe, again, the seller's willing to repair these items. That's usually the goal of the inspection here. Because if they're really sold on that house, that it is the one, they're normally not going to be in that boat where it's like, oh no, it's really all these costs, it's more than what we thought about from the beginning. Okay, well, it's just a numbers thing, right? It's just based on the money. So if the property was a lower price to where these items were basically built into the price and we reduced the price so you could fix these items there, would you be okay with that? Well, yeah, I actually would be. Great. Let's go get you a deal on this house then. And now but see how we know the next steps? Yes, that might be difficult renegotiating. We might not get all the money it is that they're looking for, get all the things taken care of, but we're moving this process forward. We're keeping the ball rolling. We don't want to get stuck running in place. Running in place gets you nowhere. Running in place is thinking about the problem rather than taking steps to actually solve that problem. So we want to try to, again, do that through all of these steps here. There could be problems with the appraisal. There could be problems with the title. There could be problems with the loan. There could be all these problems that you're having here. The good news is here on this back end, in addition to your broker that you have to help you through these steps here, you have all these other people on your team that are experts in these arena. The mortgage loan originator, and look, if this teammate isn't doing their job, we might need to switch out that teammate. We might need to make a substitution. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's our client's call, but we might need to be able to identify, hey, look, this lender's really dragging their feet. I don't think they're going to be able to pull this off. I don't think they're going to be able to get this done on time. Let's get you in touch with this person instead. Let's just get a second opinion maybe from this person. Maybe they get in touch with one lender and that one lender, they can't get the loan pushed through. Maybe there's some issue that they have. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't qualify for a loan altogether. It just means that that lender can't get it done. So it's not that they can't do this. It's like, hey, we need to find another lender. Oh, that's the next step. Our clients might not see that next step. But when we're the professional, we need to see what these next steps are. We need to have the plays ready when things go certain ways. We need to know these steps and have this figured out of, okay, if this happens, we're going to do this. So that way we, again, seem like we have all the answers. And our clients will know that we don't have all the answers, but they're going to feel confident in our process and feel confident in us when we know how to adapt, when we know how to jump onto something when we need to. Say, okay, well, we've got to do this now. Well, you know, it turns out, yeah, there's an inspection. Okay, let's renegotiate the price. Oh, turns out the appraisal didn't come back as high. Well, what that means here is we'll either have to get the seller to drop the price or you're going to have to come up with more cash. And notice how that would sound really bad if we tell them about that after the fact. Whereas if we warn them about that, if we tell them about that with the appraisal, about the appraisal process, about the appraisal step here, that might be a question when we're initially offering and negotiating this here. They might say, well, what if the property doesn't appraise for this much money? And we might answer that question very early on. Well, if it doesn't appraise, well, we've either got to get the seller to drop the price or you'll have to come up with more cash. Those are the only two ways we'll be able to get into this if that property doesn't appraise. Maybe starting a whole brand new loan over from the beginning where it's a new loan officer with a new appraiser and maybe going that route all over again. So maybe that could be the what if. And if you don't have the answers to these questions, the deal falls apart. You lose the sale when you don't know these next steps. When you don't have the answers, when you don't know, when you're the captain of the ship and you don't know the course to chart, you're not going to get your passengers to their destination. So you've got to know when a storm comes up how you get around that storm to still make it to the destination. If you don't know how to get around the storm, you're not going to make it to the destination. And when we don't make it to the destination, that's when we get paid. We don't get paid till we get our ship across the Atlantic. We don't get paid till we make it to New York City with all of our passengers and they're getting off. If we don't make it there, if a storm comes up, if there's something unexpected that we didn't plan for and we don't know how to get around it, we don't know how to get past it, we don't know those next steps, that's where the deal falls apart. So it's all about, again, knowing what's next. What if this happens? What's next then? And then we're prepared. That's how we become prepared. And look, like I said, you just have to be one step ahead. If you're one step ahead, you're going to seem prepared. Now, ideally, you want to see this whole process inside and out, but I know this can be intimidating when you're new. So when you're new, focus on being one step ahead. If you can focus on being one step ahead, you're going to learn this information in a really relevant process because you're going to see how this affects your actual clients. And that's how they say experience is the best teacher, because experiences can be very memorable. Now, it's also the hardest teacher as well. So when we don't know that next step, we don't know how to get around that storm here, That's a hard lesson because we don't get paid when we've invested all this time, work, and energy to get paid. So again, the more intentional you can be about, hey, this is the process, these are the steps we've got to get you through. If we get you through this year, we're going to get you this house. We lay it out, and we, again, knowing what those next steps are, being confident about this process so that way our clients can be confident. They'll be confident in the process, they'll be confident in us. All we need then is for them to be confident in the house, which if we've done this process, they'll be confident in that property as well. And the more confident they are, the more smooth this process is going to go, and it's going to almost seem too easy. When it seems too easy, that's when you know you're doing it right. That's what your goal should be, to make this easy. Anybody can make this process complicated. Anybody can take hundreds of hours of showing houses where eventually somebody gets burnt out and they're just ready to make a decision on whatever just because they can't look at another house. Anybody can make this process complicated. That is not hard. That is not difficult. That is extremely easy to do, to make this process difficult. The trickier part is to make this process easy. But it's very rewarding if you make this process easy. It's rewarding for your clients because it's going to be easy for them. It's rewarding for you because it's going to be easy for you, and it's doubly rewarding for you because when it's easier for you, you could work with more clients, and when you could work with more clients, you get paid more. You could help more people purchase more homes, you end up getting paid more. This process to help a buyer buy a home is not really that difficult. To the extent that it's covered in your pre-licensing course even gives you a really good overview. It doesn't really get into all the details or even as many details as we've touched on today, but even that little tidbit in your pre-licensing course about, hey, these are the steps to the sale. That's basically all it is. This isn't that complicated of a process. Now, there's going to be specifics, there's going to be details that could add complexity to this process, but those are just details. Those small details don't necessarily dictate the entire transaction. Just because there's a difficult detail doesn't necessarily mean the whole transaction is difficult. And maybe the reason why there's that difficult detail is you just maybe have to tweak and adjust your process a little bit so those difficult details don't ever come up. So again, lay out what it is that you need to do, so that way you can present it to your clients so you know the steps, you know the process, and more importantly, your clients know the steps, your clients know the process, and that's going to help you close buyers so much faster, so much more efficiently, and so much more smoothly. Not only is it easier, it's more enjoyable to do. You know, it's easy to get burnt out working with buyers, especially if you're showing home after home after home with no end in sight. If all you do is show home after home after home after home and you don't feel like you're getting these buyers any closer to buying any of these homes, that's extremely frustrating. It makes you feel like you're wasting your time and that there can be hours that you're spending better. And when you start thinking that, it's hard to not think that. And that really just puts a damper on you just being able to even do your business, get things done. So the more intentional you are about this process and these steps, the smoother your transactions will go. So that's closing buyers in a nutshell. Again, the main steps and some main tips going through this. Like I said, when you're starting out new in real estate, you're more on a buyer lead than you are a seller lead. And buyers leads, again, if you just let the buyer run the show, hey, I want to go see this house. Oh, let's go see. Now, they understand that they need to look at houses. Everybody knows that's a step to buying a house, looking at it first, so they know they need to look at it. But they might not always know what's next. I mean, of course they know they've got to get it under contract and all that fancy stuff to buy it. But see how they don't understand that quite as much? Say, oh, well, how do we make it? What is that contract going to look like? What does the offer look like? When they have these unknowns, that makes them not confident. And when they're not confident, they get stuck running in place. And that stuck running in place is looking at house after house after house. Again, the way the home search process should be done is we're utilizing the information that's available online. And that information isn't just in the form of written text. That's great, but even better, we've got pictures. And even better than that, we've got videos. And even better than that, we've got virtual tours. And again, as technology continues to advance, we're going to see more and more and more of that. So we want to take advantage of this technology to be able to do this process of elimination without having to go to the property. Now, there's still going to be properties that they're going to want to see in person. But those properties that they see in person should be the top contenders after there's already been many properties eliminated through these virtual methods. And look, this has been going on for years. Ever since property searches have been online, people have been doing this, but now there's even more available online. Again, the videos, the virtual tours, so much of that you could use to help your buyers make a decision before they have even seen the property. And again, not make the final decision, but really to rule out some of these properties that they know are not going to be a good fit for them. So utilizing that as just one detail of some way that if you're intentional about this, you're going to have much faster results. If you're just letting the universe direct you and guide you through this process here, and really just using trial and error, you'll eventually figure it out. But you got to have a lot of persistence, because when you don't know what you're doing here, you're probably going to fall on your face, you're probably going to mess things up, and you'll probably blow some deals. So the more it is you can figure out, hey, I got to do this, and this. And look, even if you don't know the full details, just knowing, again, these steps that we're going through here today, I mean, maybe if you're getting ready to make an offer, again, you're reading through the contract. Even if your brokerage doesn't offer any sort of training or class or anything like that on how to fill out one of these contracts, maybe you go look on YouTube for something like that, or maybe just read the contract. Maybe you call that Florida Realtor legal hotline if you're a member of the Association of Realtors and pick their brain on, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? So that way you understand that. What else is that you don't understand? Do you not understand the loan application process? Hey, talk to some of these mortgage brokers and mortgage loan originators. There's tons of them that do little trainings of, hey, here's how you get your clients pre-qualified. Here's how you get your buyer to want a pre-qualification. Maybe you talk to an inspector and say, well, tell me a little about the inspection. I'm new to real estate here. I really want to understand this better and understand what I should be telling my clients, blah, 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 blah. Maybe talk to an appraiser. Hey, well, what is it that you're doing to appraise? What are potential issues? What if this happens? What if this? Maybe the title companies you have questions on, call them up. Hey, what if I've got a buyer that wants to know how much they might need to pay? Do you have a tool that can help me figure that out? You've got all these people on your team. Utilize the resources they have available. That's why the likelihood for success in real estate, the potential that exists for you to be successful, the things that are already figured out and there for you, is immense compared to really any other business it is that you'd want to start, because there's so much support from your broker, support from your colleagues, from all these people who are all aligned around the same goal that you have to serve this buyer or seller, if we're working with a seller, but in this case we're talking about buyers. So you've got these people to help you through these processes here. That information is out there. Real estate has so many resources available to us. You just have to know where to look. You just have to know the basics. And that's with our post-licensing course, I know I mentioned that earlier. That's such a foundational, fundamental course. That's not going to teach you everything about selling real estate, but it's going to teach you so much so you'll know those right places to look. You'll know the basic things it is that you need to do to go through a sale. So if you haven't taken that post-licensing course yet, get yourself signed up. If you had a renewal deadline this year in 2020, they've extended the 2020 deadlines to the end of the year because of the pandemic. So if you have not done your post-licensing or continuing education courses, you've got until the end of the year to get those done if your deadline was this year. And if you just got your real estate license, get enrolled in that course as soon as you can, because like I said, it's got a lot of real-world knowledge that's going to help you grow your real estate business in addition to knocking out that renewal requirement. And maybe if you don't even have a real estate license yet, we've got some great bundle packages. If you want to get our complete jumpstart that includes our pre-licensing course, all of our study tools, your post-licensing course, really everything to get you hit the ground running, call us up 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. Or you can also check us out online at tampaschool.com. That's tampaschool.com. Like today's episode, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. That's how we know what videos we should do more of. If you guys want to know more about buyers, hit that thumbs up button so we know to make more videos about working with buyers and closing buyers. If you like sellers, go find one of the videos we've done on sellers and go hit the thumbs up button on that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out on any of this information, make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you get notifications whenever it is that we've got new videos or new content to help you in business. Because at the Tampa School of Real Estate, we ultimately want to help you achieve your dream real estate career, whatever that means to you. Whatever level it is that you want to attain. We want to help get you there any way it is that we can. We want to help you achieve your dream real estate career. So let us help you. Call us 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. Or check us out online at tampaschool.com. That's all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you on Friday for State of Real Estate. Hey, so if you're thinking about starting a real estate career, it could feel a little overwhelming sometimes. Look, that's completely understandable. That's why we're here to help. If you haven't already, check out our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success. Or if you don't even know where to begin, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that we can. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Give us a call. We're the Tampa School of Real Estate.
Do you want a career that allows you to be in control? With a career in real estate, you'll get to call the shots. Whether you're looking at starting part-time or want to become the next top agent, a career in real estate makes it possible. Find out what it takes at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free. mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Are you thinking about a career in real estate? Hey, I'm John Chrisma with the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we've helped thousands of people just like you obtain their real estate license. If you're thinking about a career in real estate, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way they can. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.